What if you're not misremembering? What if the thing you remember was real and someone changed it? That question sounds like the setup to a science fiction story. It isn't. It is the conclusion that thousands of researchers, physicists, and ordinary people are arriving at independently after looking at a specific category of documented phenomenon that mainstream science has spent years trying to explain away. They haven't managed it yet. Here's what we know. There exists a class of memory, not rare, not isolated, but shared by millions of people across different countries, different languages, different generations, where large groups of people recall the same specific detail that does not exist in any verifiable form in our current reality. Not a vague impression, not a fuzzy recollection. A clear, confident, specific memory of something that never happened, shared identically, by people who never spoke to each other. The phenomenon has a name, the Mandela Effect, and it is named after one of the most disturbing examples on record. Thousands of people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison. Not just that he died. They remember the coverage. They remember the footage. Some remember his widow delivering a speech to the nation. They carry this memory with the same certainty they carry their own birth date. Nelson Mandela did not die in prison. He was released in 1990 after 27 years of incarceration, became president of South Africa, won the Nobel Peace Prize, and lived until December 2013. There is no version of events in which he died behind bars, and yet the memory of it exists, detailed, specific, and shared, in the minds of thousands of people who had no contact with each other and no shared source for the false information. Psychologists tried to explain this one away. Mass media confusion, the brain constructing false narratives from partial information, a simple case of misattribution. It was uncomfortable, but manageable. And then the other cases started surfacing, and the comfortable explanations stopped working. You almost certainly know the Monopoly man, the top hat, the white mustache, the round cheerful face that has been on the box since 1935. Now picture him clearly. What is he wearing on his face? If your answer is a monocle, a single round lens over one eye, you are among millions of people who carry that image as fact. He has never worn a monocle, not in the original 1935 artwork, not in any redesign, not in any regional version of the game across any country, not once in 90 years of official Hasbro branding. The monocle does not exist. It has never existed. And yet millions of people remember it with absolute certainty, some so convinced that they have gone back to check the box specifically to prove they were right. Then there is the one that is hardest to dismiss because it involves text. Written, printed, physically reproduced text that should leave no room for misremembering. If you grew up reading the Berenstain Bears, the children's book series by authors Stan and Jan Berenstain, you likely remember the name spelled differently, Berenstein, Berenstain. You remember seeing it on the spines of the books. You remember sounding it out. The series is spelled Berenstain, Berenstein. Every physical copy ever printed confirms this. Every archive, every library record, every original manuscript. The difference is one letter, an A, where millions of people swear there was an E, and they don't vaguely remember it. They remember it with certainty. At this point, the conventional explanations are not just insufficient. They are statistically incoherent. Human memory is fallible. That is established science. But fallible memory produces vague impressions and individual errors. It does not produce millions of people independently generating the same specific incorrect detail down to a single letter. That is not how memory fails. That is not how anything fails, unless something else is happening. Simulation theorists have had an answer for years. We exist inside a constructed reality, a system of such computational complexity that it presents as indistinguishable from what we would call the physical world. And like any complex system, it requires maintenance, updates, corrections. The monocle was removed, the spelling was patched, the historical record was altered, and the only evidence that a previous version of reality existed at all are the memories of the people who lived through it, memories that were not updated along with everything else when the change was made. This is no longer a fringe idea, entertained only by people on the outer edges of the internet. Philosopher Nick Bostrom published a formal simulation argument in 2003 that has been cited, debated, and taken seriously in academic philosophy and theoretical physics ever since. His core proposition, that at least one of three things must be true, one of which is that we are almost certainly living inside a simulation run by a post-human civilization, has never been formally refuted. In 2016, Elon Musk stated publicly that the probability we are living in base reality is billions to 1 against. Physicists at MIT, Oxford, and Columbia have published papers examining the mathematical structure of our universe and noting with increasing discomfort that it behaves less like a physical system and more like an information processing one. And here is what that means for the Mandela Effect. If the simulation is being updated, if someone or something is making changes to the base code of our perceived reality, then the Mandela Effect is not a psychological curiosity. It is a version control error. It is the digital equivalent of a developer pushing an update and forgetting to clear the cache. The old data persists in the memory of the users even after the system has moved on. We are not misremembering. We are remembering a version of reality that no longer exists. There are currently over 200 cataloged Mandela Effect cases. Some are trivial, a logo slightly different than everyone remembers, a movie quote that doesn't exist in any recording of the film. Some are deeply unsettling, entire geographical features that millions of people remember existing in different locations, historical events with outcomes that large populations recall differently than the official record reflects. Taken individually, each one can be explained. Taken together, they form a pattern that points in one direction. Reality has been edited. The Mandela Effect is the error log, and we are only just learning how to read it.